Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These words from Carl Jung are not just a reflection on the human mind. They are a quiet warning, a truth most people overlook while sprinting toward their dreams. Everyone tells you to chase your dreams, to follow your passion, to keep going, no matter what. But what if the dream you're chasing is not truly yours? What if it was planted there, by your wounds, your fears, your unmet needs, and you've mistaken it for your purpose? In a world that worships ambition, we rarely stop to ask, who exactly is doing the dreaming? Most people run towards success without ever asking why they desire it in the first place. Maybe you've worked endlessly for a goal, only to feel empty when you got there. Or maybe the path keeps getting harder, no matter how much you push, and deep down something feels off. Not because you're weak or unmotivated, but because you're chasing something that doesn't belong to your real self. Have you ever wondered why some dreams feel so urgent they nearly ache, yet achieving them brings no peace? Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and one of the founding figures of depth psychology, spent his life exploring the unseen forces that shape our thoughts, behaviors, and desires. His work unveiled the hidden architecture of the psyche, the unconscious, the shadow, the archetypes, that quietly influence who we become. Jung believed that within each of us lies an unconscious world far deeper than we know. This hidden part of you, the one you rarely confront, holds the keys to your deepest truths. If you ignore it, it will still guide your life, shaping your decisions, steering your passions, even whispering your desires. All without your permission. So before you run toward that dream, maybe pause. Maybe ask, what part of me created this dream? Was it love, or was it fear? This video isn't about telling you to stop dreaming. It's about helping you uncover what's underneath the dream. To show you that clarity doesn't begin with movement, it begins with understanding. And if you don't understand this one thing, you may spend your entire life chasing someone else's vision, mistaking it for your own. And that is not fate. That is sleepwalking. And the time to wake up is now. If this kind of deep, honest reflection speaks to you, if you're not just chasing motivation, but actually trying to make sense of who you are and why you're here, then you're in the right place. The Thinker of Being is all about diving into the stuff most people avoid. So if this video hit something real for you, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button to let me know it helped, and drop a comment if you've got something on your mind. Seriously, what are you really chasing, and have you ever stopped to ask why? Dreams often arrive wrapped in emotion. They feel urgent, powerful, and deeply personal. You tell yourself it is your calling, your purpose, or the one thing that will finally make everything make sense. But beneath that urgency lies a truth many people never explore. Not all dreams come from a place of clarity. Some are born from confusion. Some grow out of wounds that were never allowed to heal. At first glance, a dream seems like a pure expression of your potential. It feels like something sacred. But have you ever asked yourself where your dream actually comes from? Have you ever paused and asked, why do I want this so badly? Carl Jung believed that much of what we desire originates from parts of the psyche we do not fully understand. The unconscious, as he described it, is not just a dark corner of the mind. It is a vast and living reality that contains everything we have forgotten, denied, repressed, or never even realized about ourselves. When this unconscious material surfaces, it can shape what we believe is meaningful, including the dreams we build our lives around. Many people chase dreams not because they are ready to create something beautiful, but because they are trying to fix something broken. A child who was never seen grows up craving fame. Someone who felt powerless as a teenager dreams of building an empire. It feels like ambition. It looks like drive. But sometimes, it is just the psyche's way of covering a wound with a story. When a dream comes from pain, it does not disappear when you achieve it. You may get the success, the applause, the recognition, but instead of feeling whole, you feel emptier than before. Have you ever had a moment where you accomplished something big, only to feel strangely disconnected or even disappointed afterward? That feeling is not failure. It is a signal. It means the dream was not connected to your deepest self. It was built on something unresolved. Jung's psychology invites you to explore this. It asks you to stop running blindly toward the finish line and instead turn inward. Not to judge your dream, but to understand its roots. There is nothing wrong with wanting something deeply. But if that desire was born from fear, rejection, or a hunger for approval, then no amount of external success will satisfy it. This is not just theory. You can see it everywhere. People spend years chasing careers that do not suit them. They follow goals that look good on paper but feel hollow in their hearts. They sacrifice their health, their peace, and sometimes even their relationships, all for a vision that never truly belonged to them. And the worst part? They often do it with pride, believing they are chasing purpose, when in reality they are avoiding pain. Think about your own dream for a moment. When did it start? What emotion was behind it? Was it excitement? Was it love? Or was it something darker, something harder to admit? What is the real reason why you chase your dreams? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. Because if you do not ask them now, your dream may lead you somewhere you never meant to go. Jung often reminded us that real transformation does not begin with achievement. It begins with awareness. When you become conscious of the deeper forces behind your desires, you gain something far more valuable than success. You gain alignment. You begin to want things that nourish your soul rather than compensate for your pain. So before you keep chasing, take a breath. Sit with your dream. Look at it without judgment. Ask it what it wants from you, and what it is trying to give you in return. You might discover that the dream itself is not the destination. It is just a mirror, reflecting back the parts of yourself you've been waiting to meet. Every human being carries within them a shadow. Not a shadow in the physical sense, but a psychological one, as Carl Jung described it. It is the part of the self that we do not want to see, the collection of traits we disown, reject, or bury deep inside. But the shadow does not disappear just because we look away. It waits. It watches. And eventually it finds ways to act through us, often without our awareness. When it comes to dreams, the shadow plays a more powerful role than most people realize. It can shape what we long for, how we define success, and even the image we try to project to the world. It does not simply stay in the dark. It hides inside our ambitions. Sometimes, we chase greatness because we are terrified of insignificance. Sometimes, we pursue power because we secretly feel powerless. Sometimes, the dream is not about becoming more, but about proving that we are not less. These are not conscious motivations. They are born in the shadow, in the unseen corners of the self we have not yet made peace with. Jung believed that until we confront the shadow, it will control us from behind the curtain. It will feed our goals, push our desires, and attach our sense of worth to outcomes that were never truly meant to define us. That is why some dreams feel so intense, so desperate. It is not just about achieving something. It is about escaping something. Something buried. Something feared. Have you ever caught yourself overreacting to a failure? Or feeling threatened by someone else's success? Those moments often signal the shadow's involvement. It speaks in emotion, in patterns, in the quiet but persistent whispers of self-doubt. And when we refuse to listen, it shows up in our choices. In the things we chase. In the things we abandon. There is a reason why so many people achieve what they once wanted and still feel like something is missing. The dream fulfilled does not always bring peace, especially if the dream was born from a place of avoidance. If the shadow created the dream, then success will not silence it. It will only shift its form. You may become rich, but still feel small. You may become respected, but still carry shame. You may become known, but still feel unseen. These are not external problems. They are psychological ones. And no amount of success can solve a wound that lives in the unconscious. To face the shadow is not to destroy it, but to recognize it. To sit with the parts of yourself you do not like, and ask why they exist. To acknowledge your fears, your insecurities, your envy, your pride, not to feed them, but to understand them. Because once you bring the shadow into awareness, it loses its control. You stop chasing dreams out of desperation and start creating goals from a place of wholeness. This is not easy work. It requires courage. It requires honesty. And it requires a willingness to stop running, just long enough to listen to what your unconscious has been trying to say. But if you do that, something changes. The dream becomes clearer. It becomes quieter, more grounded, more authentic. It becomes less about proving something and more about expressing something real. So ask yourself, what are you trying to prove? Who are you trying to impress? What part of you feels unworthy? And how is that part shaping the life you are building? These questions are not meant to tear you down. They are meant to set you free. Because when you face the shadow, when you integrate the parts of yourself you once rejected, you stop chasing the wrong dreams. You start becoming who you were always meant to be. Carl Jung believed that the ultimate goal of psychological growth is not happiness, success, or even the fulfillment of desire. It is something much deeper, something he called individuation. To individuate means to become whole. It means to bring every part of the self into awareness and harmony, not just the parts you like or that earn approval, but the entire inner landscape. And in the process, you no longer live for the ego's dreams. You begin to uncover the dream of the self. The ego is the part of you that wants to be seen, praised, admired, and accepted. It forms early, shaped by your environment, your culture, your upbringing. It tells you who you should be in order to belong. The ego wants you to succeed, but its definition of success is always limited. It is based on the roles you have played, the masks you have worn, the identities you have learned to protect. Individuation challenges this. It asks you to look beyond the image. It asks you to step away from the life you are expected to live and to ask instead, what life wants to live through me? There is a difference between chasing a dream and listening for a calling. The dream often begins in the ego. The calling comes from somewhere deeper, from the self, which Jung described as the center and totality of the psyche. The self holds not just your potential, but your truest direction. And it rarely shouts. It waits in silence for you to listen. Have you ever had a quiet feeling that something about your life did not quite fit, even when everything seemed to be going well? That small discomfort is the self nudging you. It is the tension between the life you built from expectations and the life that actually belongs to you. The process of individuation is not about rejecting your ego. The ego has a role. It helps you survive in the world, navigate relationships, accomplish goals. But it must not be the only voice. When the ego dominates, your dreams become performance. You begin living for applause instead of alignment. You become a role instead of a person. Many people live this way for years. They become successful in the eyes of others but remain strangers to themselves. They climb ladders that lean against the wrong walls. They achieve goals that never really came from within. And deep down, they feel the ache of something missing. Not because they failed, but because they followed a version of life that was never truly their own. Jung's idea of individuation invites you to shift the direction of your energy. Instead of projecting outward, constantly chasing what the world tells you to want, you begin to turn inward. You begin to meet the forgotten parts of yourself. You learn to recognize when a desire comes from your ego's fear rather than your soul's truth. This is not a quick process. It unfolds over time, through reflection, through inner work, through moments of loss and insight. But as you move through it, your dreams begin to change. They become less about escape and more about expression. Less about what you can take from the world and more about what you can bring into it. So before you chase your dreams, ask yourself who inside you is dreaming. Is it your wounded self trying to be seen, or your deeper self asking to be expressed? Ask yourself this. If you remove the need to impress anyone, what would you still want? If no one were watching, if no one could applaud or criticize, what would still matter to you? These are not easy questions, but they are the doorway to freedom. Because once you begin to individuate, you no longer need your dream to prove your worth. You want it because it reflects who you truly are. And when your dream comes from that place, it becomes a source of energy, not exhaustion. This is the shift Jung invites us to make. From the chase to the calling. From the ego to the self. From the dream that flatters you to the one that fulfills you. You do not exist in isolation. From the moment you are born, you inherit more than just your name or your biology. You inherit expectations, beliefs, and values that come not only from your family or culture but from something deeper that Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. This is the shared psychological inheritance of all humanity, filled with universal patterns, ancient stories, and symbolic roles. It lives inside you whether you notice it or not, and it often plants dreams that feel personal but are not entirely yours. From a young age, you are taught to play certain parts. You are told what a meaningful life looks like, what success means, and what kind of future is worth striving for. These ideas are not evil or wrong, but they are often passed on without question. You absorb them through school, media, religion, and social interaction. You grow up chasing images that were placed into your mind long before you had the chance to ask if they belonged there. Jung understood that these collective patterns, called archetypes, shape our inner world. The hero who must rise and conquer. The caregiver who finds worth in sacrifice. The rebel who seeks freedom. The creator who wants to leave a mark. These figures live in myths and movies, in fairy tales and advertising, and they also live inside you. You might think you chase your dreams out of pure individuality, but sometimes those dreams are just echoes of something much older. Have you ever felt like you were living a script that someone else wrote? Like you were playing a part that made sense on paper but not in your heart? That feeling is not uncommon. It often means that the dream you are following was borrowed, inherited, or absorbed. And the deeper tragedy is that most people never realize it. Social media amplifies this illusion. You see images of success, money, status, lifestyle, admiration, and you begin to mistake those images for inner truth. The collective unconscious adapts to the times, and now the archetypes have Instagram accounts. But the game is the same. You begin to chase your dreams based on what looks right instead of what feels true. And in doing so, you drift further away from your own center. Jung warned against this kind of unconscious imitation. When you follow dreams shaped by collective ideals without awareness, you do not become more fulfilled. You become more divided. You live with a constant tension between who you think you should be and who you actually are. And the longer you ignore that tension, the heavier it becomes. That is why so many people reach midlife and begin to unravel. Not because they failed, but because they finally realize that the success they worked for does not speak to their soul. They followed the map, only to discover it led them to someone else's treasure. And by then, they often feel too afraid or too entangled to start over. But what if you questioned it now? What if you stepped back and looked at your dreams, not with judgment, but with honesty. Ask yourself, where did this dream come from? Who gave it to me? What emotion lies underneath it? Is it desire, or is it expectation dressed up to look like passion? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary if you want to live with authenticity. Because once you begin to separate what is yours from what was inherited, you gain clarity. You start to recognize the difference between living a life of meaning and simply performing a life of success. You do not need to reject every influence. The collective unconscious also holds wisdom, but that wisdom only becomes real when you engage with it consciously. When you stop being a passive receiver of dreams and become an active participant in shaping them. Jung's insight reminds us that when you chase your dreams without reflection, you might be chasing someone else's version of meaning. And if it does not, no amount of effort will ever make it feel right. But once you uncover the dream that does belong to you, the one that rises not from imitation, but from inner truth, it no longer needs to be chased. It begins to grow inside you. Quietly. Authentically. Unshakably. There is a moment in every honest life where the outward chase no longer works. The goals that once felt thrilling begin to lose their color. The victories feel quieter. The applause fades faster. And something inside you begins to whisper that the next level of life will not be found by reaching higher, but by looking deeper. Carl Jung believed that true growth begins not when we achieve more, but when we start listening to the inner world we have ignored. That inner world, your unconscious, is not just a container of suppressed memories or old emotions. It is a landscape. It holds symbols, patterns, dreams, and pieces of your personality you have not yet met. And if you want to build a life that feels real, you have to begin there. The modern world rarely tells you to do this. It tells you to keep moving, to be productive, to check another box, to push through discomfort and stay ahead. But what if your discomfort is not a flaw? What if it is a message telling you to pause before you chase your dreams any further? What if your anxiety, your doubt, your confusion are not signals to hustle harder, but invitations to finally sit still and listen? Inner work is not glamorous. It does not give you instant feedback or external rewards. No one claps when you realize the real reason you have been chasing success is because, deep down, you still feel like you are not enough. But that moment, that quiet realization, is where everything begins to shift. That is when the dream begins to transform from a chase into a mirror. When you chase your dreams without awareness, you may miss the deeper truth that dreams are not just goals. They are messages. They carry the fingerprints of your past, the voice of your fears, the echo of your longings. And if you never examine them, they become a script you live out unconsciously. You chase success to heal your shame. You seek love to fill your emptiness. You push for recognition to silence your insecurity. And none of it works for long. Inner work means asking the hard questions. What am I running from? Whose approval am I still trying to earn? What part of me have I rejected? And how is that rejection shaping my dream? These questions do not have easy answers, but they have powerful ones. And the more willing you are to face them, the more you begin to feel whole. This work is deeply personal, but it does not have to be done alone. Therapy, journaling, dream analysis, shadow work, and meditation are all tools that help you see what lies beneath the surface. They give you language for what you have felt but never understood. They teach you how to navigate the emotional patterns that used to control you from the dark. Jung believed that dreams, literal dreams while sleeping, and metaphorical dreams we chase, are not random. They are symbolic expressions of the unconscious. If you begin to interpret them, not just in terms of external goals, but as inner messages, they will begin to guide you. Not toward faster success, but toward deeper truth. The turning point is subtle but profound. You no longer ask, How do I get what I want? You begin to ask. Why do I want this? And eventually, what part of me is asking? That is the moment you stop chasing and start aligning. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop performing and start becoming. You might still want success, love, creation, impact. But now, those dreams are not masks. They are reflections. They arise from a place of clarity, not compensation. They carry your voice, not your wound. This is the real work. Not building a life that looks good, but one that feels true. Not pushing past your limits, but understanding where they came from. Not dreaming louder, but listening more closely. Asterisk, and the truth is, before you chase your dreams any further, it helps to realize the real dream was never out there. It was always in you, waiting for you to stop running long enough to hear it. Asterisk. At some point, the question shifts. It is no longer, how can I win? But, what does winning even mean to me? For many people, the urge to chase your dreams and pursue success begins early and runs on autopilot. You are handed a definition, money, recognition, influence, and told that this is what matters. But when you follow that path without examining its origin, you often arrive at your destination feeling more lost than when you began. Carl Jung believed that true success is not found in conformity, or in chasing images handed down by culture. It is found through integration. To integrate means to bring together all the parts of yourself, the conscious and the unconscious, the strong and the vulnerable, the light and the shadow, into a coherent whole. It means you are no longer divided. You are no longer chasing something to escape something else. Integration does not always look impressive on the outside. It might not earn applause or go viral. But it feels different. It feels grounded. It feels alive. You are no longer trying to become something. You are allowing yourself to be something that was already there. Many people spend their lives running in circles because they are chasing dreams that were never rooted in their own center. They think they chase their dreams with purpose, but they are just repeating emotional patterns that never led to fulfillment. They recreate the same struggles with different people, the same emptiness under different achievements, the same self-doubt in different careers. Real success begins when you pause long enough to notice the pattern. When you ask not what you should want, but what you truly value. When you stop comparing your life to others and begin honoring your inner truth. That truth might be quieter than ambition, but it is far more enduring. Jung's work reminds us that meaning is not something you find out in the world. It is something you bring into the world by living in alignment with your authentic self. That self is not created through force. It is revealed through honesty. Ask yourself, if all external rewards were removed, what would still matter to you? If you could not impress anyone, what kind of life would still feel meaningful? These are not easy questions, but they are powerful ones. They help you separate the voice of your ego from the voice of your essence. When you begin to live from integration, your dreams evolve. They no longer demand that you prove your worth. They invite you to express your wholeness. You stop seeing life as a competition and begin to view it as a creation. Success is no longer measured by what you collect but by how deeply you connect, to yourself, to others, to your purpose. You might still want to build, create, lead, or innovate. But the energy behind those desires has changed. You are no longer compensating for what you lack. You are sharing what you've discovered. Your work becomes an extension of your inner clarity. Your dream stops being a chase and becomes a channel. The beauty of this kind of success is that it lasts. Not because the outcome is guaranteed, but because the process itself is fulfilling. You are no longer waiting for life to begin once you reach your goal. You are living it now fully, because your dream is not out of reach. It is already part of who you are becoming. This is what it means to live with depth. Not just to do more, but to understand why you are doing it. Not just to rise higher, but to root yourself deeper. Not just to shine, but to see clearly. And perhaps that is the one thing people forget before they chase their dreams with everything they have. The dream is not a destination. It is a mirror. And the more clearly you see yourself, the more clearly you will know which dream is truly yours. In the beginning, we asked the question, what if the dream you are chasing is not really yours? Now, after walking through the layers of Jung's insights, through shadow, through ego, through the collective unconscious, you may start to sense the answer. Not in a conclusion, but in a new awareness. Because the real point of this journey was never just to tell you how to chase your dreams. It was to help you notice who inside you is doing the wanting. Carl Jung's quote still echoes. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These words are not meant to frighten you. They are an invitation. An invitation to stop letting life happen to you, and instead begin understanding what has been driving you all along. The world will always push you to run faster, climb higher, and chase louder. But there is another path, one that begins with stillness. One that asks you not what you want to be, but who you already are beneath the noise. That is where the real dream lies. Not the fantasy built on fear, but the quiet truth rooted in self-awareness. So ask yourself one more time, what are you really chasing, and why? If this journey stirred something inside you, if it helped you pause and reflect on where your dreams come from, then maybe you've already taken the first step towards something deeper. And that matters more than any finish line. You never had to chase your dreams to become someone. You were always someone. The real dream is to remember that.